Hey guys, my name is Eduardo and welcome to our channel. So today we're going to be talking about specific types of Hispanic foods you may have never heard of, and we're actually going to be making them. So what I did is I actually got inspired by this series that just came out on Netflix. It's called, I don't know how well you can see that, but it's called Taco Chronicles. And it goes in depth into all the kinds of Mexican tacos that you may have never even heard of before, but are actually extremely common. And are actually some of the real tacos that you may have never heard of before. So when you think of taco, you're probably just thinking a steak taco or, something like a chicken taco. But that's not really what a real taco is about. There's a lot of different kinds. Today, what we're going to be doing is tacos al pastor. So let's get right into it. Alright guys, welcome to the commentary here. So in this first part, I decided to show you all the ingredients that we're going to use to make our tacos al pastor. So of course I started off with the main ingredients of the marinade, and this is to the far left garlic powder, followed by chili powder, and here we have cumin. And for all of these that I'll be showing you, all these spices, you'll be using 1 tablespoon. The key ingredient here that I'll show you of the spice is called achiote, is actually one that we'll be using 3 tablespoons for. So after cumin we have oregano, and we have our basic black pepper and table salt. So those two as well, we'll be using 1 tablespoon. So here I believe, yes, so we're going to use vinegar, and we're going to use 3 1/4 cup, and pineapple juice, which we're going to be using a full cup of. And these are going to be very important, every single one of these to have in our marinade. And here is the achiote molido, which is a key ingredient that's going to give it its color and its taste. So I found mine in a Mexican supermarket, which I'm sure, if you can Google it and find one near you. But you can also find it at Walmart. So at my Walmart, they were actually out of it, so that's why I decided to go to the Mexican supermarket, my local one. And for tortillas, you can use flour or corn tortillas. I decided to use flour just because it's my personal preference. And the meat, it's going to be very important that you use pork shoulder, which is what I showed you there. Sometimes it can also be called carnitas. So here I'm just mixing in the 3 tablespoons of the achiote molido, and that's the first thing I'm putting in. Right now what we're doing is prepping and doing the mix for the marinade for the pork and what we're going to add to it. I follow it up with chili powder, I believe, and try to get 1 tablespoon in there. Continuing, I do the garlic powder, again 1 tablespoon, so nothing too fancy here. Oregano or cumin, one of the two, again 1 tablespoon, oregano it is. And continuing here, yep, that's the cumin now, that's what we're adding in. So far nothing too difficult, pretty easy, and these really give it a great taste. So I really, you really shouldn't skip out on these ingredients. So here I made a mistake, and for the black pepper I purchased the grinder one, the one where you kind of have to get the grind going for the black pepper. I suggest you buy the pre-ground one, because it really took me some time to get. I couldn't even get a full tablespoon out of this. I just settled for half, and it seemed to be fine. But if you're a fan of black pepper, definitely suggest you go for the other route, because it really took a while. Here I add oh yeah, I think I double added the cumin, or 1 ingredient, because I just completely forgot that I did that. But anyway, here I added the salt, and then I add the pineapple juice. So something I completely forgot until later on, which I didn't show in the video, is the vinegar. I forgot to add the vinegar. I mixed it here and then actually started marinating it, and as soon as I turned off the camera, I remembered and just quickly added the vinegar and kind of mixed it in a little bit more. So at this point I added the pork shoulder, which I only show about 2.5 pounds, but I ended up using 4 pounds total. So I start adding it in, and make sure you really get it all completely covered. So you can see it's a little bit fuller here, and at this point I had added the entire package of 4 pounds. So I really try to make sure that it was all well marinated and there wasn't any single piece that was not completely covered. So at this point, you let it sit for 2.5 hours or more. Honestly, I suggest the longer the better. You could even go as high as 8 hours to really make sure it soaks in the flavor. So after it's ready to go, you make sure you have a non-stick wax covered baking sheet. And what I used is the traditional way is you make a drum, right? So sort of like a some Mediterranean food where you could probably see it on a drum. So here, this is what I tried to do with a chopstick because didn't have anything else. So kind of try to improvise, adapt, overcome. That didn't quite work out so well the first time. I kind of just splattered it everywhere. So I had to kind of take that out, kind of make sure there wasn't any sort of remnants of that chopstick in there. Fortunately, I had the second chopstick and made sure that it would not break this time. So I made my little drum, and it wasn't too stable at first, so couldn't get it to stand together. So I decided to add the rest of the pieces around it to kind of give it some support. And I decided that, hopefully that would work. So this is what I was trying to do here right before baking it. And as you can see, it kind of looks a little bit off, but it did the trick, at least at the beginning. Then I added a small touch of the pineapple piece at the top. So you wait for 1.5 hours. That's how long it's going to take to bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And yeah, so my little tower there fell, the little drum. And so I started cutting it, the very thin slices to kind of check the meat to see if it was well done. And it was. And so here I'm showing the ingredients that we're going to use for the taco itself, the seasoning. So you're going to have some chopped up onions, some cilantro, and your tortillas. Make sure they're warm. They have to be warm for it to be a good taco. And of course, for tacos al pastor, pineapple is a fundamental ingredient. So I put it to the side a little bit, and this is where I start actually making the tacos. So just put a plate down, start it off with 3, and you kind of just go, make sure that the slices you take from the meat are thin. You have to try to make them as thin as possible. That's just a traditional way. You don't have to, but it's just a little more authentic, I suppose. And make sure you leave enough room to add the rest of the condiments and that the taco can close in your hand. So here I just kind of started off with the meat, and then for the cilantro and the onion, all you have to do is grab a little pinch and add it to each taco. And the pineapple chunks I had there were a little bit big, so I decided to cut them off into smaller, thinner pieces and add them to the tacos. And here in a second, you're going to be able to see what the final product looks like. So these are tacos al pastor. These are very as authentic as I could make them, but I think I was able to get it right. So these tacos al pastor are one of the most popular choices for tacos for most Mexicans, especially where I'm from La Ciudad de Mexico. So let me know down in the comments if you've ever heard of these before or not, and let's see what Diego makes and let us know which one you would rather pick.
Hello guys, because Eduardo just killed it with that taco recipe, I needed to do something really special. So I called my grandma and I got a really authentic Colombian recipe for a sancocho. That's a soup that I grew up eating, and every time I go to Colombia, my grandma is always waiting for me with a special plate of sancocho. Now I'm going to show you the ingredients of this delicious sancocho recipe, as my grandma told me. So you start with 6 skinless chicken thighs. It's better if they have bones, but the ones I found were boneless and they will do. The second thing that you need is a bunch of cilantro. The freshest, the better. The cilantro is a key ingredient in this recipe. Then you're going to have 3 ears of corn that we're gonna split in half later in the recipe. And next you are going to add some scallions. These scallions in particular I got from a friend's farm. She has a farm in northern Michigan, and they were harvested this morning, so they are gonna be really delicious. This is a yucca root, which is common in South America, not so common in the United States, but it's still easy to find in your local stores. Then you're gonna have an onion that we're gonna chop later into different pieces, into tiny pieces. And this is a plantain. So a plantain is very tropical. Don't confuse it with a banana. For this particular recipe, we're gonna look for a green plantain. Don't get the brown one. This is some cumin that we're gonna add. Some salt that you're gonna add to taste, depending on however much you want. I always like it with less salt. And some cloves of garlic. 4 cloves of garlic will do the trick. And finally, we're gonna add some potatoes. I am using 7 small potatoes, but if you can also use like 3 medium potatoes or just 1 big potato. Okay, we're gonna get ready to cook. Of course, the last ingredient is the olive oil. Okay, so let's get cooking. So you're gonna chop all the alliums, which is a fancy word to say things like onion, garlic, and scallion. We're gonna chop them as fine as you can. Don't worry too much about it though, because it's gonna cook down once we put it in the pot. This is just a fancy technique that I learned about crushing garlic before you cut it. That way it gets more aromatic, and it's just better for the soup. Okay, so we're just gonna chop all of those ingredients, as I said, as finely as possible. Here we have the scallions that we're chopping also into tiny pieces. And this is the yucca. This is something that I wanted to highlight. It's very important that you peel it, because we don't want that brown skin it just doesn't taste good, and it will make it harder to cook. And we're just gonna cut it into big chunks, because it cooks down really easy. Okay, this is the plantain. Here you're gonna see me struggle a little bit peeling this plantain. It's way harder than a banana. So yeah, eventually I was able to get it. I'm gonna ask my grandma what is the trick of opening a plantain, and same as with the yucca, you're just gonna cut it into big chunks. Okay, so once I'm done fighting with this plantain, we're gonna move on to chopping the cilantro. So as you can see, this is not cilantro. As soon as I started chopping, I smelled parsley, so I made a mistake at the store. I just ran real quick and grabbed some actual cilantro, because that's key in this recipe. These are the corn ears that we just chop in half. You can make them smaller, however you want. And finally the potatoes, just make them into small cubes so they cook faster. Okay, let's get to cooking. So we're gonna add some oil, and we're gonna start just heat it up a little bit, and once it's sizzling, we're gonna add the alliums, which are the onion, the scallion, and the garlic. Just cook them for a little bit until you hear that I left in the video, so you can hear the delicious sounds of that food. So there we go, it just goes like that. Then you're gonna add the chicken thighs. Okay, make sure to be clean with cooking meat. Be safe when you're cooking meat. So then we're gonna add some salt, just so it adds some flavor to the chicken before we add the water. Then you're gonna add all the big vegetables, the big chunks, which is the yucca, the potatoes, the corn, and the plantain. And just when you throw them into the recipe, just add water, just enough water to cover them. This is something I forgot to mention. Another ingredient that we need is bouillon. You can add cubes of bouillon or just this liquid bouillon that I found, and that just adds more flavor. Finally, just add about 3/4 of the cilantro. You can save the rest for garnishing, and mix really well. we're gonna bring all of these ingredients to a boil, and once it's boiling, we're gonna simmer for about 40 to 45 minutes. As you can see, it looks really good already, and this is the final result after 40 minutes. And I will give this one a 9 out of 10. My grandma's is better, but I did a really good job. So try it out. I hope you enjoyed our video, and I hope you try these recipes at home. Don't forget to comment which recipe you like the most, and also don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Enjoy!